friends, welcome back to my channel and thank you for clicking on today's video. If you're new to my channel, my name is Haley. Thank you for stopping by. Today I'm sharing how to be an intentional and sustainability minded consumer. So this is a follow-up video from last week's video when I talked about what is wrong with fast fashion brands and the fashion industry as a whole right now. And I wanted to share some concrete ways that you can actually implement positive changes into your own lives so that you are making more conscious and informed decisions. Somebody mentioned in a comment on my previous video that this is not about perfection, and I don't want to make you feel like you need to be perfect and that you need to implement every single idea that I'm going to share in this video. I personally believe that if all of us individually did at least one good practice and we changed the way that we bought in one way at least, we could collectively as a whole make a really positive difference in the world and in the fashion industry. So as I list out these different ways that you can be a more intentional consumer, please keep in mind that not all of these might work for you, and you should figure out the ones that do work for you and try to implement those the best way that you can. What I don't want to happen is have you go through this list and think that, none of these are applicable to you or that none of these will work for you, because I guarantee at least one of them will, and I strongly encourage you to try to make at least a small step forward in the sense of living more sustainably and intentionally. So before I share the ways in which you can do this, I do want to share two different mindsets that have helped me in making the switch over to more sustainable and conscious living. The first one is the mindset that less is more. And this has kind of been my journey since, I guess, COVID-19 started, because obviously we were stuck inside more than usual for me because I'm an introvert, but I realized that I had way too much stuff around me and it was really taking away from the peace that I wanted to feel within my life. So I began this journey through decluttering, and throughout that I learned about minimalism and then now sustainability. And so this has all helped me learn that less is more. And when you have less stuff, you have more room to do the things that you love, to be with the people that you love, and all of this other great stuff. So less is more, and I think that trying to learn more about that concept and mindset is going to really help you make those positive changes in your life. The next mindset that I always keep in the back of my mind, especially when I am feeling like I need to shop, is to buy less, buy better quality, and make it last. So anytime that I am, feeling like I need something, or if I see an item on social media that I absolutely fall in love with, I think back to this mindset and I just try to put myself into that perspective and think, do I need this? Is it good enough quality? Is it gonna last? And not just is it gonna last in the sense of quality, but is it gonna last in the sense of me loving the item? Or is it just, a flicker in time that I'm enjoying looking at this item and thinking that I might be able to wear it next season, or even just for a season or two? So these two mindsets are the ones that have helped me make positive changes in my life. They're the ones that I always fall back on if I'm feeling like I'm about to make a bad decision in the realm of the fashion industry. And I think that they would also be really helpful to you guys. So if you want to learn more, I'm going to link some resources down below in the form of books and podcasts and documentaries so that you can actually take a step forward and learn more about them. Okay, so the first step of becoming a more intentional and sustainability minded consumer is to reflect on your habits and your tendencies. Basically, the reason why I have this as the first step is because I think that it's really vital in understanding why we do what we do. And a lot of the reason behind that is because these brands are amazing at marketing, and social media is huge, as all of us know, and it's very tempting to buy new stuff all the time and feel like we need more all the time. So I have 3 different questions that you can consider when you are trying to reflect back on what your habits and tendencies are. The first one is, what makes me want to shop? What is my trigger? So I mentioned this before, and my trigger personally that I found out over the past 3 or 4 months is that when I'm feeling emotional or lonely, I tend to gravitate towards shopping to kind of fill that void. So once you figure out your triggers, and this could be different for everybody, once you figure those out, you're actually able to take a step back and figure out solutions that will help you better cope with those triggers instead of going to shopping and buying new stuff. The next question that we can ask ourselves is, what motivates me to shop? So one, term, it's not really a term, but it's a saying, is that people try to keep up with the Joneses, and this is basically the concept that you are trying to keep up with the people around you. So if you have a friend or even a family member that makes a little bit more money than you and is constantly buying new luxury items and name brands and all of these wonderful things, if you feel like you need to buy the same level of items, and if you feel like you need to buy the same brands in order to keep up with that person, then that is a really deep down motivation that you have to purchase the items that you're purchasing. And I'm just gonna say this, like, you should not feel like you have to keep up with the people around you, and if they make you feel like you need to keep up with them, then are they really your friend? Like, really, take a step back and just think about it. And I know that's probably totally off topic and very personal, but it is definitely something to think about. And another motivation that people might have is that they're insecure about how much money they make. And often people who don't make enough money will actually spend more that they don't have on items that make them look successful. And this is something that everybody goes through at one point or another, and it's definitely something that is really hard to stop doing, I think, especially when you're insecure. But it is something to realize and just reflect on a little bit so that you can figure out better ways to fill those voids. And the third question that you can use as a reflection is, are your possessions taking over your life? And this is something that has to do with the way that you feel when you walk into your home, walk into your bedroom, wherever it is that you might live, and the way that you feel about the things that you own. So if you step into your closet and you automatically feel overwhelmed and anxious, then that might be a sign that you have too many possessions, and that it's time to get rid of some stuff and make a change for the better in the sense of living with less. If you feel really overwhelmed when you walk into your living room because there's clutter everywhere, that's also a sign that you probably have too many possessions. So realizing the way that you truly feel about your things is going to help you figure out whether or not you're at the point where you can do less and buy less. The next step, or I guess practice that you can implement into your life would be to do your research. So as people say, ignorance is bliss, and that is absolutely true when we are talking about the sustainable fashion movement and being an intentional consumer. And like I said, this does not mean that you need to be perfect. I think that small changes are the way to go when we are talking about becoming intentional consumers. And one small way that you can do that is by simply educating yourself. And this doesn't need to be a gruesome task of, flipping through textbooks and like huge, gigantic books of facts and statistics, but it can just mean watching a documentary about the fashion industry and the truth behind it. I've got quite a few resources that I'm going to share. I will link them down below, but a few different ways that you can educate yourself are by watching documentaries, listening to podcasts, and reading really good books. I have quite a few that I have consumed over the past few months, and so I will link those down below for you guys. I think that educating ourselves is the most key factor in making these changes in our lives, because we want to know what we're doing and why we're doing it, right? So the purpose behind becoming an intentional consumer is the information that we'd be learning if we were educating ourselves about these issues. Now that's one aspect of it. So learning about the fashion industry as a whole and kind of elaborating on that video that I shared last week is what's going to help you understand why we are doing what we're doing. And then another aspect of researching and educating yourself has to do with the brands that you're shopping from. So there are a few different areas that I think should be focused on when you're researching about a brand. The first one is ethical labor. The second one is the supply chain and production volume. The third one is fibers and what materials you are buying. And then the fourth one is about the closed loop cycle. So ethical labor obviously has to do with the people that are making your garments. Try to find out exactly where your clothes are coming from and if in that country people are being paid a proper living wage. For example, in Bangladesh, women and garment workers all together have a minimum wage of $3 a day. So that's not a living wage. And yet these brands continue to hire these factories in those cheaper and more vulnerable countries because they are cheap. So if you take a step back, look at where your garment is coming from and realize that the people who are making your clothes are not being treated correctly, then that's a light bulb moment where you should be like, do I want to support this brand or not? Probably not. And is there something better that I could be doing or supporting? Now the next one, supply chain and volume of production, basically has to do with what processes are involved in the supply chain. And this is something that is very difficult to research as a consumer because for each specific item, you don't actually know what happens through the production process, but what we can look at is how much is the brand actually creating. So all of these fast fashion brands, they produce in mass amounts, meaning that they produce in millions and millions of volume, and then they have them shipped to, the countries where they're sold in retail stores. And this is not sustainable whatsoever. It leaves a huge carbon footprint, and it's just not sustainable in the sense that we don't need this much stuff. So try to focus on the brands that are producing in small batches or even doing pre-order items so that they're only producing the amount that is requested of consumers. The ones that are also localized in manufacturing enable us to reduce that carbon footprint that is associated with traveling from one country to another. The next factor to think about is the fabric and fibers that your clothing is made of. So when you're looking at an item that you want to purchase, try to take a look at the materials that they're made out of, and also learn the difference between synthetic, which is basically plastic, oil, and chemicals, versus natural fibers, which are grown in crops and fields and actually come from the earth, so therefore can be put back in the earth. Think about the difference between those and if or where they can be disposed of and discarded at the end of their life. If you're choosing a 100% polyester shirt over an organic cotton shirt, there's two different ways that these can end. Polyester is not repurposed. Like, it is such a low percentage in the whole textile waste that polyester is actually repurposed or recycled to create another thing. It usually just ends up in a landfill, whereas natural fibers can actually be repurposed more easily, and they can be repurposed so that the next garment that is created is not of an insanely lower quality. I hope this makes sense. I really hope I do, because I feel like my brain is just thinking at 1,000 miles a minute. But basically you want to think about the fibers that your clothes are made of, because we also want to think about working in a closed loop cycle, which is my next point. So having a closed loop cycle basically means thinking about the entire life cycle of the product and where it's going to end up at the end of its life. So if you're buying something for $5, are you viewing this item as so valuable that it's going to stay in your wardrobe for 5, 10, even 20 years? Or is it something that can easily be replaced and will end up in a landfill? That's what you want to think about when you are actually purchasing. And if it does end up in that landfill, is it biodegradable? Polyester and synthetic fibers are not biodegradable. They sit in landfills for over 1,000 years, depending on the material. And organic ones and natural fibers are much easier to biodegrade, but they can also be repurposed. So if you do end up getting rid of an item that is of a natural fiber, you can bring it to, a recycling depot or somewhere that repurposes clothing, and it can be created into something else that is just as beautiful as the first item that you bought. The next practice that you can implement into your life is to use all that you have. So before you go out into the mall and before you go onto your computer screen looking for something brand new, use what you have already and use it until it's done. Use it until it is in such bad condition that you absolutely have to get rid of it or that it needs to be replaced or repaired, because using what we have allows us to value our items even more, and it also helps us to treat our items in a better way so that we can prolong the life of them. Using what we have is probably the key factor in living a minimalist life and understanding that less is more. The next practice that you can implement into your life is challenges. So try to challenge yourself and the way that you think about the stuff that you own. For example, I'm currently doing project 333 and it has opened my eyes so much, you guys. I could literally just live on the wardrobe that I currently have. I basically created a tiny capsule wardrobe and I have been so much more at peace when I'm getting dressed, and I've also felt a little bit more creative because there's not very much to work with, right? But it makes me appreciate the items that I have even more. So challenging yourself to, you know, for 30 days maybe don't visit the mall or don't buy clothing, or for 60 days to wear only a specific amount of items and pack away the rest. It enables you to get a fresh perspective on the stuff that you own and the things that you wear. So I think that it's a really great way to kind of give you a boost in the right direction. The next practice that you can really implement into your life, and I hope that all of you do this one because it is easy for all of us to do, is to download and use an app that allows you to see the sustainability and ethical rating of a brand. So my favorite app for this is Good On You. I actually don't know of any other ones at the moment, but if you guys know any, please comment them down below. But basically this app ranks brands on their scale based on how sustainable and ethical their practices are. And this has to do with, you know, animals, it has to do with the environment, and also has to do with the people that are employed by them. And so it really gives you a full breakdown of whether or not it's a brand that you should be supporting. And the ranking scale is very easy to understand as well. So this is something that I automatically go on if I see a new brand that I'm considering shopping from, or if I even see something in store that I'm curious about, because it's another way to educate ourselves on how these fashion brands are actually working. And the app is free, by the way, so it's super easy to use and very easy to access. Okay, practice number 6 is to think about the true cost of the items that you are buying. So the true cost of an item is not just the price that you pay for it. It has to do with the people who are involved in producing it. It has to do with the impact that it has on the environment, both during its production process and after, once it is purchased. And it also has to do with the effort, the time, and the money that you have to put in to maintain and take care of the item. So when you think about these true costs, it gives you a bigger perspective on whether or not you should be buying a brand new, like 50th white t-shirt for your wardrobe. And I know that a lot of us have duplicates of a lot of different things in our wardrobes, and it's hard to decipher whether or not we should buy something when it's, you know, a new style, or it has a slit in the side, or, you know, it's high-waisted versus a mid-rise. But taking a step back and thinking about the true cost of, you know, where is this item going to end up? Am I really going to keep this in my wardrobe for a long time? Can I wear it more than 30 ways? Is it going to be useful to me? Or is it going to end up in the landfill like so many billions of other textiles do every year? Okay, the next practice is to rent instead of buy. And this is something that I have not personally done yet, but I definitely do want to try this if a special occasion ever does come up. And the idea behind renting is that you are allowing garments to live a full life. So you're reusing the things that are beautiful and that are trending maybe and that are high quality, so that they are, you know, living that full life and not ending up in the landfill like it would probably if you were to go out and buy a brand new item for just one specific event. That is something that I used to do all the time. It's something that other people do all the time. And even the people around me, like in my family, if they say, oh, I need to like go out and buy this for this specific event. I actually try to talk them down now and explain that you don't need to do that. Like, you have good stuff in your wardrobe already. Try to make that work. But if you don't have something in your wardrobe, you can rent it. And there are companies such as Rent the Runway that actually allows this, and you can rent things for weeks or even months at a time. And it's definitely a fraction of the price that you would pay for a brand new item. The next practice that you can implement into your life is buying secondhand and from thrift stores. So obviously, you know, we're trying to buy less, but if you, I don't know, if you like really enjoy fashion and maybe you create content as a creator with fashion and garments and all of those things, then trying to find items from thrift and consignment stores is definitely key in working and functioning in a closed loop cycle, because you're giving those garments a second life basically. And this is especially true for more higher priced items, because often you will find like luxury and designer items that are being sold secondhand, because those are not the types of things that you just go and donate or give away for free, right? So if you're looking for an expensive item in specific, definitely look on websites like eBay, Vestiaire Co, The RealReal, Farfetch, and all these different sites, so that you can maybe find something for a much more affordable price, and so that you're not buying a brand new item. Another practice that you can implement into your life is selling your items to individuals specifically. So instead of automatically giving an entire garbage bag full of clothes to, you know, a thrift store, try to sell them through Facebook Marketplace or any local websites that you might have where, you know, people in your local city trade or sell items to each other, because those are sure ways of making sure that your item is actually going to be used, instead of going through the process of ending up in a thrift store, staying in there for a few months and not getting purchased, then ending up in a landfill anyway. It's just a way of ensuring that your garment does live a full life. And I think that this is something that I need to work on as well. I obviously am selling a lot of stuff on my Instagram closet, but I'm also still donating a lot of items. So I am trying to figure out a way to get rid of these in the most sustainable way. And sometimes that might even mean giving them away for free to people who are in need and maybe can't afford to buy stuff. So think about that when you are getting rid of items from your home. Another way that you can do this is by repurposing your clothing. So if you are good at sewing, if you're good at arts and crafts, then this might be something for you. You can also hire somebody to do this for you. It probably costs a little bit more, obviously, but it's definitely worth it in the long run. Repurposing items that, you know, are not in good condition, or maybe they don't fit you anymore, is a great way to lengthen that life of the garment. And it's much better than just getting rid of something because it doesn't fit or it doesn't look good, or you just don't like it anymore. It's a really great way to also provide it to somebody else in a new shape or form. And my last practice that I advise or suggest that you try to implement into your life is to simplify your daily routines. So this is something that I'm sharing because it really worked for me. And when I simplified my morning, evening, skincare, and makeup routines, I felt like there was so much more room and space for the truth to be seen. Not just in, you know, fashion, but also in other areas of my life where there was just too much excess. And most of us, almost all of us guys, have too much excess in our lives. And so simplifying our routines helps us to learn that less is more in every different part of our lives. So just for example, my beauty routine, I haven't shared my new and organized makeup drawer with you guys yet, but it has very little in it. There's actually this brand new brand called Merit Beauty, and they have a completely clean line of minimal makeup products. And basically they're multifunctional. I like to use their blush on my lips and also on my cheeks. And they're also super easy to use, and they're clean. So they're clean for the environment, and they're clean for our bodies and for our skin. So I think that, you know, simplifying but also making sure that you're using quality, clean products is really important in helping you learn and train your brain to believe that less is actually more. And there you have it. Those are my practices for being a more intentional and sustainability minded consumer. I hope you enjoyed this video or found it helpful at least. And if you did, as always, don't forget to give it a big thumbs up and hit that subscribe button down below if you haven't done so already, because I post every single week. If you have any thoughts or practices that really work for you, feel free to share them down below in the comments, because I do think that we should be starting conversations and talking to each other about these issues and the ways that we can do better as a whole. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next week.